Hi, everyone. My name is Anisha Gupta, and I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Cloud App Security team. I focus on our conditional access app control feature, and today I'll be talking about our secure access pillar within Microsoft Cloud App Security. So let's get started. In this presentation, I'll cover the current cloud and threat landscape. Then we'll go and talk about Microsoft Cloud App Security and how to remediate threats. I'll hyper-focus on adaptive access and showcase some scenarios, and then I'll leave you with some takeaways and go-dos. So while fundamental transformation in security has been well underway for now, the global pandemic has put all of us on an accelerated path and brought many of the toughest challenges right to the surface. Our traditional perimeter-based network and security models just do not adapt. And for many, the existing infrastructure was not ready for such a large shift of remote work. So we see ourselves needing the support all of the users in a hybrid work environment. And as employees are transitioning into these new work models, they're bringing more and more devices to add on to the increase in diversity of endpoints accessing the network. On top of that, security admins are facing difficulties understanding and finding detection and responses across multiple clouds and multiple platforms. And then on top of that, applying security controls on all of these inconsistent service providers. And bad actors are aware. They know that this is happening in this day and age, and they're exploiting all of the current vulnerabilities. And on top of all of this, the current networks just do not provide or are not optimized to prevent lateral movements. And so we're battling this question of how do we drive operational resiliency while strengthening cybersecurity? And our challenges are further exemplified by all the stats that we've seen in the past year of an increasingly large threat landscape. There's been a 230% increase in password spray attacks in 2020. 78 gigs of data has been uploaded monthly to risky apps by the average enterprise. 5 billion attacker-driven sign-ins for detecting in August 2020. And finally, 1/3 of all the attacks on enterprise accounts involve phishing in some shape or form. In this presentation, I'll show you remediations that can be performed through Cloud App Security so we can mitigate and decrease these threats. So how do we do that? Well, to secure the cloud, what we're going to do is look at two specific pillars within Cloud App Security and hyper-focus on the adaptive access scenarios. So I'll start with the control and monitor user sessions in real time, and then go into the governed discovered apps. Just keep in mind that Cloud App Security is a cloud access security broker with many plethora of use cases that can be used and adapted to mitigate these threats. So let's start with adaptive access. When you look and hyper-focus on adaptive access, in this case, we have Aldo, who's coming in from an unmanaged device, which is indicating a medium session risk already. We leverage a one-click integration with Azure AD Conditional Access to help understand what conditions and where is Aldo logging in from to understand what kind of access can he be granted. In this case, he can be permitted through the proxy and allow certain actions such as downloads, uploads, any data exfiltration or infiltration scenarios, or they can be blocked. And typically for the history has allowed or blocked specific actions, but now we've actually introduced a third method of being able to allow an action with an additional security check. So having that continuous reevaluation of policies if a sensitive action is performed. Instead of me talking through this, let me actually show you one of our demos. In this demo, I'll showcase how you can enforce strong authentication on sensitive file downloads for users similar to Aldo. We'll pivot to the end user experience where Aldo is trying to access an Atlassian environment on an unmanaged device. You'll see right off the bat that he is redirected and going through the Microsoft Cloud App Security reverse proxy with this mcas.ms domain appended to the original domain. We're going to go to product requirements. Aldo would like to view the product requirements and be able to download this onto his machine. And what you'll see here is neither an allow or block, but the third option where he can allow the download as long as he performs the relevant security check, which in this case is strong authentication, meaning that we have a require MFA policy behind the scenes that's configured in Azure Active Directory to set the authentication context to understand once that MFA challenge is completed, you'd be able to perform the actions as required. So we'll just start the PDF export, and as soon as that's complete, as Aldo will download the PDF. And you'll see that Tombstone file appear on the top right-hand corner. So some file was downloaded, but not the PDF that we were expecting. Instead, we were prompted with a security check. We're prompted to approve the sign-in via Azure AD. So I'll hop on Authenticator on my phone to approve this sign-in request. Once that sign-in request is approved, we'll be prompted to stay signed in, click yes, and that security check is completed. Now we can perform additional actions. So we'll continue to Atlassian and navigate it to the same page I just left off of. And when I download that PDF in the top right-hand corner, you will see that PDF generate and I'm able to access the file. Well, that was the case for Aldo because he was coming in from an unmanaged device. What do we have a user that is experiencing some risky behavior? So here we have Risky Rick. He's been performing some unusual activity before. So what we've seen is that currently his user risk is at a medium and his session risk is also at a medium. So he will go through the Azure AD conditional access policy and go through the proxy as expected. But now any action that he performs will be blocked as expected. This block action will be signaled directly to the admin, but the admin can then determine whether they want to escalate Risky Rick's user score to a high. So in the next demo, what I will show you are three main components. We'll start with configuring the user risk and session policies. So here in the user admin, I'm logged into the Azure portal under the conditional access policy where I'm routing Risky Rick to Cloud App Security when the user risk is medium. I've already selected Rick and the cloud applications I'd like this to apply to and the conditions involved. Specifically in the conditions, we have user risk and it is at a medium. This user risk is calculated offline based on Microsoft Threat Intelligence signals, and so this is automatically configured behind the scenes, so I don't need to do any manual configurations here unless I, as an admin, would like to escalate his user risk. Then we have the component which allows us to pivot to the Cloud App Security proxy. And here's that single click integration of use conditional access app control. While we can monitor only or block downloads, in this particular case, we're going to use a custom policy. And what we'll see here is that this policy can be configured directly in the Cloud App Security portal. And so I've pivoted to the session policy that's configured in the Cloud App Security portal, where I'm blocking download of sensitive file when the user is in medium, specifically for the case of Risky Rick. I can select an application filter, username, and a plethora of different filters here. And as I scroll down, I can select different actions such as test, block, or protect. In this case, I am going to block and provide a customized message saying the action is not permitted, and to have Rick contact his administrator if he has any questions. The third policy that I'll create is in the case where Risky Rick's user risk ends up escalating to high. In this case, this is indicated that Rick might indicate a compromised user. And so what we'll find here is that a grant control has been applied to require a password change if Rick's account has been compromised, and I, as an admin, have escalated that accordingly. Now that we've configured all of the relevant policies as the admin, we'll now pivot to the end user experience. So now we'll see that Risky Rick as a current risk of media, and all of the downloads that he conducts in his environment will be blocked as expected. So here I'm Risky Rick. I'm logged into our SharePoint site and I viewed a folder of customer data. I'm currently undergoing the Microsoft Cloud App Security Reverse Proxy. As you can see, that domain is appended. And here I see that Sylvia has uploaded some nice sensitive information of social security numbers. I decided I'm currently performing as a bad actor, and I would like to download that specific information. You can see that a tombstone file appears at the top right corner, and the download is blocked as expected. There's even a custom message that I showed it before of this action is not permitted. Please contact your administrator if you have questions. So now that Rick has been blocked from downloading any sensitive content, and if it is an indicator that he is a bad actor, what we can see is what happens from the admin perspective. And we can elevate his user risk from medium to high to require that password reset. So we'll pivot back to the admin experience, where there are two things that have happened. The first and foremost is that I receive an alert similar to this one, where I see a blocked download of sensitive file where the user risk is medium. This is the session policy that I indicated in the beginning. And I can actually perform a resolution option right within this alert right here. But let's say that I don't check my Cloud App Security Console as often as I do with Teams. I can also configure a specific alert that ends up triggering within Teams that tells me, hey, there's a user alert triggered, the severity is medium, and it gives me more context around the alert. This can be customized as expected as well. And then, so what happens is that once I actually go and perform that resolution of confirm user compromised, that will immediately escalate Rick's user risk from a medium to a high, and then it will enforce that policy that I have to require that password reset. I want to take a moment to pause here and just talk a minute about the powerful capabilities that were just demoed. So starting with not only understanding Risky Rick and the unusual behavior activity that we initially saw from Microsoft Cloud App Security, we're also able to see that his user risk score was already elevated to a medium status via Azure AD and those Microsoft Threat Intelligence signals. From there, we were able to take it one step further and create a conditional access policy and a corresponding MCAS session policy to enable those comprehensive session controls to block a download if any sensitive actions were performed. And then we took it one step further from the super admin perspective to understand not only was that sensitive action blocked, but it was alerted upon to the extent of Teams and directly into the SOC channel. So as a super admin, I was able to go in and directly escalate Risky Rick's user risk from medium to high to require that password reset, that policy that I enabled right from the get-go. And so this really, really showcases the power of conditional access app control, the power behind the reverse proxy, the ability to add access and session controls. One thing to note for both the Aldo and Risky Rick scenarios is that these were configured for sanctioned applications. They were both single sign-on configured applications that were available in the Azure AD App Gallery, and we extended off of that conditional access integration to apply those session controls, apply that block download, and step up accordingly. And while this does work anytime and anywhere, we are still missing the scenarios around unsanctioned apps. So what do we do? Well, we can leverage another technology within Microsoft Cloud App Security, which is the endpoint CASB. This leverages the Shadow IT discovery feature, which allows us to monitor all of the different cloud applications that exist in our ecosystem and also apply governance actions via Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. Again, this is a simple single-click integration where we're immediately able to get recognition of the applications, users, IP addresses, and even devices that are accessing these endpoints from the home Wi-Fi or corporate network. It works anytime and anywhere as well, and is all powered from the platform from the cloud. So how does adaptive access tie into endpoint CASB? So at the top, we have that shadow IT. These are all of the applications that we might be unaware of as an admin of what our employees are accessing day to day. Luckily, that shadow ID is aggregated and parsed in the Microsoft Cloud App Security portal. So we're able to see all of the different applications displayed and then tag those applications as sanctioned or unsanctioned. Then, from the end user perspective, wherever that end user is coming from, that endpoint, for that corporate managed device, typically they'll have that agent installed for Microsoft Defender for Endpoint. And so any application that's tagged as unsanctioned would be blocked. And so they're not able to access that specific app. And so instead of me going through that scenario, let's actually see that in action. I'll break this down into the top layer and bottom layer as I described. So first and foremost with that admin experience. So as super admin, I'm going through our cloud discovery dashboard and I immediately have visibility in the apps, IP addresses, users, traffic, all of that information. And this is our global report. If I pivot to our Microsoft Defender for Endpoint report, I also get an additional tab of devices right here. Now, if I go into our discovered apps, we'll see all of the different applications that were recognized just from the endpoint alone. And so all of these applications are sanctioned. They seem to be a very low risk. Let's go to some of the high risk applications. So first and foremost, what we'll see is Backblaze, which is a cloud storage application, has a risk score of 4. If we extend this to understand why was it scored as such, we'll have a general security and a compliance rating. And we can even adjust these score metrics to understand and say, this is what matters for my company and how I would like this risk score to be leveraged. For the purpose of this being a third-party cloud storage, we've already unsanctioned this application, so any end user that was accessing this will not be able to do so. So let's see that in action. So I quickly pivoted, and now I am an end user Jane. My device information and everything is in the portal. What I want to do is access that Backblaze application we were. What you'll see in Chrome is that access to Backblaze was denied, and we get another Windows security notification that says the content was blocked. In Microsoft Edge Chromium, we'll see something very similar, where we have a Microsoft Defender Smart screen taking place where the website is blocked by the organization and that I should contact my administrator for more information. Now that I've showcased both the admin and end user experience, we're going to have a little bit of a recap of the overall adaptive access scenarios we covered. So I showcased 2 scenarios specifically with sanctioned applications and one with the unsanctioned application. In general, any application that's tagged as unsanctioned should be audited by IT if needed, and control should be applied accordingly. So we saw that power of conditional access app control, the ability to block a download in real time, being able to perform a require MFA challenge when a download was happening. There's a lot of different nuances and powerful integrations right within the control aspect. But for any application that's not compliant with the company, it's best to just block access immediately. And so you can do that from the endpoint or other scenarios such as generating a block script or even leveraging secure web gateway integrations if needed. Now, this all ties together in the story of now that you are an admin and would like to understand your cloud landscape, now you need to consistently ask yourself the question of, okay, I've discovered this application. Should my employees use it? And so this table helps guide you to understand, well, yes, then tag the app as sanctioned. No, then tag the app as unsanctioned. We do understand there are more nuances and we're continuing to build on top of this base foundation here. But for now, what I would encourage you to do is tomorrow just generate a shadow IT discovery report in Cloud App Security. The integration between Microsoft Defender for Endpoint and Cloud App Security is a single toggle button. We really encourage you enable that, understand all the different cloud applications, device information that is occurring in your cloud landscape today. Then 1 month from now, reassess. Start blocking access via Microsoft Defender for Endpoint based on the information you gathered and applications that you've sanctioned or unsanctioned accordingly. Then 6 months from now, you can continue to monitor access and session control via conditional access app control for sanctioned applications. So that ability to see uploads, downloads, clipboard actions, print, copy, cut, paste, the list goes on. So really encourage you to take away what you can from this conversation. And also, you can leverage our resources that we have here, from our Microsoft Cloud App Security documentation to our blogs, to even a free trial of the product itself. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this recording, and I hope to see you next time.